Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 11th Eugene City Council meeting. The first thing up this evening is our public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. The timer and lights indicate the time you have to speak. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. And we have 10 people signed up for this evening. First up is Bob Bussell, followed by Phil Carrasco.
Good evening, Mayor Piercy and city councilors. My name is Bob Bussell. I live in Eugene and Councilor Polling's ward, and I wanted just to briefly say a few words to you about the MUPD. So, and on behalf of the Integration Network for Immigrants in Lane County, I want to say that when we look at the local economic impact section of this, we're quite pleased with the number of things we find here: the support for local hiring, support for qualified minority and women business enterprises, wage, tax, and licensing laws, posting in Spanish and English. So there's just one provision I did want to call your attention to, though, where we had one concern. And this is the last one here that says that failure to comply with these and all MUPD requirements may result in an administrative civil penalty or termination of the tax exemption. Someone who's spent his life around contracts, I just want to say that may has a certain contingency to it, and we would like to call to your attention, we'd prefer the language of will or shall, because we really think the real common parlance for what you're doing here, and which we fully support, is a term called clawback. You know, that you claw back benefits that were given for failure to comply. And, you know, for a claw to be effective either in the animal world or in the political world, it's got to have, you know, some sharpness to it. So I think to go from may to will gives the clawback the sharpness or teeth that it really needs, given things that have gone on here in the city and the use of the MUPD, to make it truly meaningful. So we just wanted to call that to your attention, applaud your work, and, you know, sometimes a little word means a lot. In this case, we think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Carrasco is next, followed by Dennis Hebert.
Hi, good evening. How's it going? So I'm also here speaking on behalf of the MUPD Advisory Group, and I wanted to speak to viewing the MUPD through a human rights lens. Nobody in the city I know wants to exploit workers, including city council. I know this. I'm pretty sure of this. MUPD has come a long way. We're happy to see some of the recommendations to the MUPD and that the MUPD Advisory Group has make it to the recent version of the MUPD. However, to ensure no wage theft happens in the future, I think we need to go above and beyond a simple sentence that states the general contractor needs to comply with state and federal labor laws. This didn't stop the past general contractor that was granted a MUPD from exploiting local residents. So I know that having a seat for human rights representatives on the review panel will ensure we hire and grant an exemption to proven ethical contractors. This way, we can go back to folks that were exploited and say, you are being heard, your tax dollars matter, you are part of this community, and you matter. That's what's going to happen. That's the message they're going to take. And we are a human rights city, and I think this is a very proactive approach. So that is my recommendation. I will mention it again, to have on the review panel a human rights representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Dennis Hebert, followed by Helen Shepard.
Dennis Hebert, live in Eugene, Miss Taylor's ward. Hey, I'd like to thank Mayor Piercy. I'd like to thank Mr. John Reese and his staff. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you city councilors, because Civic Stadium is now in the hands of the Eugene Civic Alliance. And that's a big hooray, I think, for the community. I think it's a big hooray for working together with public entities and with private entities to get something done and to get something positive accomplished within the community. I think it shows a great spirit of cooperation that all of y'all should be very proud of. I went to 4J last week and thanked them for their part in this, because it was a dutiful thing that they did in choosing the city's bid for the RFP, and for y'all for putting it together with the Civic Alliance and everything else. I don't know what else to say, but this is a dream come true for me. I think all of y'all have realized that over the years of seeing me and a bunch of the Save Civic, Friends of Civic people coming up and testifying and all the letters and everything. But we've met with quite a few y'all, and in private and in public, y'all have always been very cordial, and even though your views may have differed, y'all had an open ear and y'all listened to what we have to say, and in the end I feel that y'all listen to the community. Some people don't realize, but back in 2008, for the 70th birthday of Civic Stadium, Mayor Piercy came and spoke, and we had a good time at that, cutting a birthday cake and everything. So we're really hoping that we can have another celebration for the upcoming, which is going to be, let's see, the 78th, is it? Yeah, something like that. So anyway, time is marching on, and so, some of the things that, you know, I really want to be thankful for is the deed restriction that Civic is going to be used for community recreation in perpetuity now. And I'm hoping that in the not too distant future that I can see each and every one of you over there at the stadium participating either as a fan or playing something on the field, and just to shake your hand and thank you once again. Thank you so much.
Ellen Shepard is next, followed by Art Bowman.
Hello, I'm Helen Shepard. I have lived in Eugene for all of my 30 years, and I love it here. I wanted to first thank the council for the work that you have done on the microhousing initiatives. I'm very impressed when I hear about the latest work session. And I want to thank you for your work with organizations such as OVE, NHS, and CSS. In regard to what I know about the Riverkeeper project, which is not a lot, I want to first say that I am very excited by the idea of having dumpsters on the riverbanks. I think that's such a great idea, and when I read that was part of that initiative, I was happy. But in regard to putting people on the riverbank, be they paid or paid with hobbit houses, I think it is not only very dangerous for them, but a poor problem-solving strategy in that it is a waste of money to be reactive rather than proactive. I think something like putting dumpsters on the riverbank is going to go further in preventing messes rather than paying people to clean it up and creating safety issues by having people paid to snitch. Something like a dumpster is a better idea. I wondered about concrete plans to create a public shelter and what the next step would be. I haven't heard anything about that in a long time, and I'd really love to know. Just because spring is here doesn't mean that we don't have a public health crisis with our unhoused situation, the unhoused population, and it doesn't mean that winter won't come again. It'll be a lot worse again in 6 months, and it's pretty bad now. I also wanted to tell you, Claire, that I read your letter to the editor in the Eugene Weekly, and I really appreciated that, talking about the Housing First model. And you mentioned that you were doing work with some different organizations, and I hoped that I could hear more about that. Thank you.
Art Bowman is next, followed by Webb Sussman.
Art Bowman, First Ward. I wanted to speak in favor of Councilman Brown's proposal to the MUPTI regulations that would loosen up the income requirements for low-income house housing. I think this is especially important downtown. As you know, there have been efforts to segregate downtown by economic class. There was an article in this dealing with Kesey, and I can confirm it. Basically, it seems like they want to limit public space and make downtown only a place for shopping or people going anywhere. Basically, that limits downtown to a place of buying items like a shopping mall rather than a public space or a gathering place. One remedy to this would be to allow people of all different income levels to be able to live downtown. I think once they live there, you'd be forced to accommodate them, and the people who are planning the segregation would have to accommodate them whether they like it or not. So I want you to strongly approve Mr. Councilman Brown's recommendations, and thank you for looking out for people of all income levels. Thank you.
Webb Sussman is next, followed by Lisa Arkin.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Webb Sussman. I live in Ward 1 now, and much to my clerk's relief, I'm sure. And I'm here tonight on two issues. The first issue is a relatively minor one, but it's a niggling, ongoing one. Apparently, you can subscribe to electronic calendars for any government organization the City of Eugene sponsors, including the Budget Committee, the Bicycle Advisory Committee, with one significant exception. You can't subscribe to the City Council calendar. The City Council calendar apparently is the only calendar in the system that is a PDF that gets refreshed manually. I don't know why that is, but I would really appreciate it if the city could make an effort to create a calendar that you could subscribe to that would plunk it into various things like phones and computers and things we've had since 1990, early 2000.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Your mic died.
If you've had any difficulty hearing me, please let me know. The second issue that I wanted to bring up was one that's of personal interest. As many of you know, back in December of last year, I was struck by an automobile while I was walking home from the supermarket. A contributing factor to that were gaps in the sidewalk system in our neighborhood. Now, I know that new developments have system charges that allow for what are now called complete streets. I believe that's a program the Public Works Department is stressing, that accommodate all users of the right-of-way. Unfortunately, that program does not fund filling in gaps in the older sections of the city where these gaps exist. In our case, we live on a road that's a primary access to Westmoreland, the Westmoreland School Complex, and yet the kids are out walking in the street because the sidewalk starts for 50 feet, stops for 500 yards, starts for 50 feet, stops for 50 feet, etc. I don't know how the primary issue appears to be funding. No surprise. I don't know how this can be addressed. I think the best way to address it would be when the streets and in the neighborhood are overhauled. The gaps in the sidewalk would be filled in at that point, but that apparently brings up several other issues. And what I'm asking for tonight is for the City Council to look into it and to perhaps accelerate any efforts they can at Public Works Maintenance and at Public Works Engineering to find a solution for this, because forcing people out into the street is not a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Lisa Arkin is next, followed by Michelle Campbell.
good evening, councilors and mayor, and thank you. Lisa Arkin. I'm here representing Beyond Toxics, the Integration Network, as well as the MUPD Advisory Group. And I first want to thank you all, and especially my counselor, Councilor Brown, for the progress we've made on MUPD. I think it's a better defined MUPD. It's provides more accountability for those using it. It increases public responsivity, and it also adds a financial assessment piece to ensure public accountability. Those are all great things. We also appreciate the inclusion of a MUPTI review panel or advisory team. I want to point out one thing that you might look at to improve there, and that would be to tease out the requirement for an environmental protection person and a public health protection person. Right now they're meshed together. And I just want to give you a few examples of how they might differ. So an environmental protection person might know more about stormwater and dealing with stormwater on site, might know more about air quality impacts to neighborhoods, would certainly be taking responsibility to uphold the city's goals in terms of greenhouse gas reduction and climate resiliency. A public health person, on the other hand, may not know anything about those topics, but might know a lot about indoor air quality, ventilation for the building, the wellness and livability of outdoor spaces, and the health of workers. So you might want to consider even increasing the number of members to 9 if it would help you get at those two issues. Right now it's an 8-member advisory team. Thank you very much.
Michelle Campbell is next, followed by Bob Maccheroni.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm really nervous right now. So I'm just here to talk about like downtown and like public safety. I really like going to the Saturday market and like going downtown to all the cute restaurants. And it's kind of like sometimes it's uncomfortable going down there, just like the environment and just so public safety and like kind of cleaning it up downtown because it's a really cute place. And I wish to go down there more, but sometimes I like don't want to. So I'm just a teenager's point of view. So thank you.
Thank you. Bob Maccheroni is next, followed by Zachary Vishnoff.
Bob Maccheroni, and I'm here representing Our Money, Our Transit, and Mike Clark's my city councilor, and I think Claire represents me at my business. I'm here tonight. I haven't been here in a long time. I do represent Our Money, Our Transit. I want to make it clear that we believe in sustainable, affordable, basic transit for our community. We have been opposed to the EMX, okay? And despite what's been said recently, that project still remains $75 million short of funding. And so I wanted to stop by and let you know this is our response brief to the last shot from LTD and the FTA. Now, they took a shotgun approach and pretty much left all our complaints standing. This will get filed on the 15th, and we're probably 3-4 months from a decision. And so until that happens, the MX is going to have to grind to a halt, despite the fact that LTD already cut 260 trees, and despite the fact they've dug up our streets. And so that's not my only problem with LTD. We keep being told that the public's included in these decision-making issues. And in Springfield, the Stakeholders Advisory Committee, they gave us 1 seat on that committee of 17 seats. But they also gave Mike Eister, the former board president, 1 seat. And worse than that, I just came from an LTD board meeting where somebody identified himself as representing a property owner in that corridor, but he neglected to say that the property owner was the Wildish Land and Development Company. And that is a direct conflict of interest. There's no way a Wildish representative should be making any decisions on the next route of EMX. It shouldn't happen. And I have had that discussion with Gary Wildish, and he has declined to do anything about it, and he's the president of the LTD board. And so when you have people hiding in the weeds, making decisions, and excluding the actual stakeholders, of the 17 members there is probably only 2 or 3 private property owners. This follows the same trend as the West Eugene. Eliminate the stakeholders and then make the decision with the LTD people. And so that's not fair to the public. That's what got you in the mess that you have in West Eugene. So there's been no change at LTD. It's actually gotten worse. And so I would like you all to keep an eye on who's sitting on these committees and count along with me. They're public entity people. They're not private citizens. They're not private property owners. They're not the taxpayers. They're not the people actually affected by these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Zachary Vishnoff is next.
Which one works?
Both.
Oh, they both work. Both work. Okay, fabulous. Zachary Vishnoff. Haven't seen you guys in quite a while. I'm a little out of practice, so you have to pardon me. The sound of this MUPTI committee, this MUPTI review board, I always thought MUPTI sounded like a Muppet, puppet or something. I never liked the name, never liked the program, but I suggest you nickname the committee the MUPTI Puppets. Let's see. I hope Mike Clark runs for mayor, because it's just something that should happen. Thank you to Our Money, Our Transit. They've been actually doing something that would make Eugene fix its sidewalks for once. Leaving all the sidewalks with these huge holes in them, that's not working. And programs like the MUPTI make sure that those huge holes in the sidewalks don't get fixed. Then on Willamette, look at what we're doing. We're going to do this huge makeover. That amount of money could fix a heck of a lot of the sidewalks around town. But what I really want to talk to you tonight is about this U of O dorm document I got in front of you. This is a project. It's not in the news at all. There was a brief mention of it in the paper last October when the independent review board approved the vague parameters of this project. $45 million dormitory. Now this would be near 17th and Moss. Now Moss Street is a place that I've been talking to this council about since November of 2000. And things still go sideways there as far as development. There's no leadership, there's no accountability. If you look at this document, you can see how these aren't open meetings for some reason. It says the meetings are scheduled and paid for by applicants and are not public meetings. Well, the U of O is the applicant, so that's the public money, and so that's a big dodge. And then you look down the form, you see the neighborhood, Fairmount Neighbors, required pre-application meeting. No. Okay. Fairmount was a historic district. Okay, in November of 2000, when I started asking you and the Historic Review Board and the MPC and the whole alphabet soup to go into detail here, and it's been a dodge. You've even gotten a unanimous vote from Lane County opposing the fact that you let U of O do this with no hearing whatsoever. So my request to you is to request the university put this to a public hearing so everyone can get their 2 cents in. Thank you.
I'm going to close the public forum and thank everyone for coming this evening. Thanks for your recommendations and your thoughts. And I just wanted to make one comment that we do actually have, I can think of 3 or 4 different affordable housing units in our downtown, so I wanted to add that to the conversation. All right, Councilor Clark.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who spoke, and welcome, and thank you for coming to the Marist students who are here, and we hope you'll come back on a night when we get to do a little bit more work and argue about something fun. So, glad to see you.
As you're here, actually. Councilor Surratt.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone who came to speak or to observe. Really appreciate all of the perspectives. Also, thanks, Dennis, for coming to say thank you about saving Civic Stadium. I just want to say I've been gloating a little bit recently about that. And I'm really grateful to everyone who worked on that out in the community to save Civic. I'm very, very proud of our council and our city for stepping up and making what a dream that was doubted by many come much more into a reality. And I think it's off to a great start. In terms of the specific question about the Housing First, thanks for the question, Helen. I am not actually personally working on that, but the mayor serves on the HUD required poverty and homelessness board that we've formed, and there's some effort in the state legislature now, I'm not sure how successful it'll be, to get some Housing First dollars programmed here to Eugene so we could start a first pilot Housing First project here in Eugene in the coming year or so. So some of that depends on action at the state legislature, but if we are able to get some funding, then the idea is the Poverty and Homelessness Board would help shepherd that process through. So I have some knowledge, but I'm not directly working on it, though I am on the Human Services Commission, which is interrelated. The gentleman who talked about the sidewalks and the lack of connectivity in the sidewalks, I definitely share that concern. I have many places in my ward that are missing sidewalks, do not have complete streets, and I keep looking around, asking city staff and other folks, what are our strategies for trying to do some infill, and it is very challenging to find those dollars. But I can say that you've got folks on this council who are aware of those problems and are looking to try to find ways that we can do that. I don't know how fast it can happen, but it is something that we care about, and so I appreciate your comments. That helps us keep doing the work. And in terms of the MUPD suggestions, thanks for those. And we're having a public hearing in part to really hear more responses from folks about that, and then we'll have another work session, and so we'll bring some of your ideas and comments back to the city manager when we come back to the table to talk about that some more. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that we are continuing through the work of the city and through the work of the Homeless and Poverty Board on what we call 365, and that is really to try to house all of our homeless vets over this next year. And we, last count, I think they've housed about 200 of those, so they're making some good progress. So there's work underway right now. So with that, any other comments? That ends. We've already done the consent calendar earlier, so that ends our meeting for this evening. Thank you for coming.